Awesome. Yeah. So Eric,
And
what I was thinking, yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I was just going to say that I'm also going
Hmm.
to record just so I can have audio for on my end.
Of course. We would hope you would.
Yes.
Does the sound work okay for you,
Hmm.
right? Okay,
You can
great.
hear us? Good.
Yep.
So Eric, what I'm thinking is that there's really this doesn't have to include me. Nancy has so many wonderful things to say.
Okay.
I'm kind of here just as a prompt, if need be, and then we can cut that. So if I say something, I'll say it to you, Eric, and then maybe you can ask the question if there's anything. Does that work?
Y- Yeah, and there's no need for me to ask the question because I'm just going to be taking sound bites from you, Nancy, for the story itself.
Excellent.
So yeah, basically it'll be like just short clips from our conversation, 10, 15 seconds long.
Perfect.
So yeah, no need for me to ask it because I won't be part of it in this this part, I should
So,
say.
so I'll just give you a prompt, Nancy.
Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you. Any help is greatly
No,
appreciated.
you got this. You got this.
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you again, both for talking to me here. I yeah, as I said, I'm gonna record and Nancy, just so I can get some level set on my end, would you mind just telling me your name and your job title, perhaps?
Sure, sure. So my name is Nancy Pellegano. I am a master's prepared mental health nurse. And currently I'm teaching nursing. I've been teaching nursing to undergraduate students for the past 10 years. I've also been doing a little bit of research, and in the past, I've done clinical work mostly with children and with adolescents.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Great. Yeah, so well, maybe Adrian, I can lean on you here because I know that you perhaps have a fuller story here. So, you know, uh
Yeah, I think Nancy, maybe you can just tell us what the program is, how you started getting involved, and what the experience has been for you.
So, um, many years ago now, it doesn't seem possible. I started to be concerned about the state of democracy and where we were as a country. I was most concerned when I started to hear some really kind of divisive rhetoric. Obviously, this came about probably um, when President Obama was in office and some of the divisive rhetoric around him and stuff that was obviously not true. And then the election in 2016 came, and it was really a concern for me. It was a concern for me, and I also have two children, and I was really concerned about what the future was going to hold for my children in our country where people were really not having civil conversations. And so I started to do some volunteer work and I found lots of wonderful places to volunteer. And somehow I don't even know how I stumbled upon the United Vision Project. Um, and I, again, I can't even tell you how I found it. And maybe it was through another organization, but it became something that became very important to me over the last, I don't know, it's been, I think, about 4 years that I've been doing this. Since I know Adrian Evans started doing this on the ground in Idaho, knocking on doors. And then when COVID hit, they went to doing more conversations online and texting folks and asking the basic questions about what is dividing the country. And so when I got trained, I went through a training program with some absolutely amazing, wonderful people who are still involved. I started talking to folks in different parts of the country about what they thought was dividing the country. And to be perfectly honest with you, it was very eye-opening. And over the last 4 years, I've continued to do it, and I find it very rewarding. I find it rewarding in a number of different ways, mostly that I get to connect with people who don't always think the same way that I think. I think sometimes we get ourselves in these echo chambers, and we are talking to people that don't always have the exact same thoughts. And so it's an education. It's an opportunity. And I'm just going to keep doing it as long as I can, as long as they will have me. And as I said, there's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful group of people, a core group of people, both staff and volunteers, who continue to do this work and support each other. So for me, it's been a way to make a difference, and to feel like I'm doing something that isn't the usual stuff that I would do, right? I door knock. I make phone calls. I do things in my neighborhood. I volunteer in my community, but this gets me out of my community and into a different space. And again, really helpful space sometimes to be in.
Is there a specific name for the program that you've been involved with, especially when you're able to talk to folks who, have different political leanings, perhaps?
So the program that I'm working with right now, the United Vision Project of Idaho, and it is a really powerful program, and it is a program where we are looking at bridging divides, because I think everybody is pretty aware wherever you are that the country is very divided. More so, I think, than we've ever in my lifetime, and I'm not young, I'm older. I've never seen this kind of division. In the past, if there were people that I didn't agree with that might have different political views, I was able to have policy discussions in civil manners. And I don't see that happening as much anymore. People sort of going to their own corners and really feeling very isolated, and not being able to have conversations. And so the people that we text with through this program, many times are scared, they are worried, they have concerns, very similar to the concerns that I have, but they may just come out in different ways. And so to try to understand the worries, the concerns that maybe people in a rural community have, where I might not be living in a rural community or in a state that I don't live in, I think that many times what comes about from doing this particular texting is that we realize we have way more in common than we are aware of. And it may be, I don't know, that we both love dogs. It may be that we both have a family that we are worried about. We can connect on levels that are not political, and then we can have more civil political conversations. And I think over the time that I've been doing this, what's become really clear is how frightening it is that our democracy is in such a state of disrepair. And I think through this program, what I'm understanding is that the only way that we are going to repair it is if we start having conversations, and the hard conversations that we might not have every day.
You know, um, just to go back to, as you were talking about the past few years, the sort of increasing rhetoric that's, really concerning. I'm wondering if you are perhaps able to talk about that a bit more, perhaps what you felt like uh, maybe people were saying, or, what was like especially troubling, or has been especially troubling to you. Because I think it obviously goes to extremes. There is violent rhetoric out there, I think. And so, yeah, I just wanted to go back to that and sort of underscore where we are, in terms of that.
I think the hardest conversations that I have, the most difficult, divisive conversations, are about the quote unquote other, that people's fears of people that don't look like them, that don't worship like them, that don't love like them, are somebody to be feared. And there's a lot of that divisiveness around race, religion, culture, gender, gender identity, that really concerns me. A lot of the fears of people who are coming to our country because they're afraid that they are coming for asylum, that they're coming as refugees, but they are being sort of cast as the bad guys or the other. That kind of divisive rhetoric, that is hard for me, because I don't view the world that way, right? I don't view the other as someone to be scared of. I view the other or people that may not be exactly like me as somebody to welcome, right, with open arms. And so the divisiveness around dividing people into groups and then casting them in ways that make people afraid, that to me has been the hardest part of the divisive rhetoric. Um, Obviously the divisions among political parties. I mean, that is very clear, right? And sort of the generalization, like all Democrats are this or all Republicans are that, is also very difficult because I think we understand that it is way more nuanced than that. That we are not just one identity, right? That there's lots of different identities that we intersect at different places. But to take people and put them into a group and to demonize them is really been, that to me, I find really hard. And that is the hardest division. And I think a division that we have got to get to a point of some understanding that we can all live and nobody's trying to take anything from anyone else, right? That we can all have our lives and we can be happy about everybody living their lives in the most fulfilling way possible.
Eric, just a note for you. So UVI started this program in 2020, as a result of the pandemic. And since then, we've reached over 500,000 people across 12 states. And we've had 5,000 people from across the country doing this outreach on a daily basis. So maybe, that can be in some of the context that you propose. I wonder to, yeah, I wonder
Oh, no,
too,
no, sorry. Go ahead.
I just wonder too, Nancy, because I think people don't understand that people, that we first talk to can actually be very angry and very skeptical of our motives for reaching out. But once we explain to them that we're here to listen and more deeply understand to heal our division, those conversations go from that hostility to something that's really positive and transformational, both for them and for the people doing the outreach.
Um, the way that we talk to the people that we're talking to is we try to be as authentic as possible. And there is a term, authentic relational conversation, which is something to be learned. I do not argue with people. I don't get into or I don't tell people they are wrong. I don't judge. I have a conversation, I listen. And sometimes, yes, the listening can be difficult because there is a lot of anger. There's a lot of hurt behind that anger. And so sometimes I will be very honest, the texting can be complicated and difficult, and it can be emotional because some of that anger can be directed at me. They don't know who I am, and that anger can be directed at me. And as a volunteer, one of the things that has been really powerful about this program is it's really helped me grow to be able to sit with uncomfortable conversations that aren't easy and respond in ways that are not, I'm not going to, again, get judgmental, or maybe reflexive in my responses. And one of the things that I think it's done is it's helped me grow as a person, to be able to listen to people who have different ideas and thoughts than I do. I've run into people out in public. I've had conversations at the post office. I've had difficult conversations in places where I've had to take a step back and take a deep breath and think about the authentic relational sort of conversations that I have online and how I can take those into the real world and have those with people who don't agree with me. So doing the work can be hard, but it's really, really, really fulfilling. And it really does make a difference and a change in my life, I think. I feel better about having hard conversations with people.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Adrian, this is across 12 states, and I was curious if there's been what the interaction has been like with perhaps people in other states with you being in Idaho. Is that something that comes up, or is that a part of the conversation at all?
Yeah, Nancy, I'll just prompt you for this, but I think it's really telling for me when I hear so many people say nobody from your side has ever reached out to ask me what I think or feel before. And for the people doing the outreach, how many people in urban areas are talking to people in rural areas, perhaps for the first time in their lives, and understanding, oh my gosh, it's like the system is broken for everybody, but I just didn't realize how that was playing out for you. So I can more deeply understand where the hurt comes from. Now we have different approaches to what we want to do to solve that problem, but truly democracy, is not a utopia. It is about coming together across difference and regional difference. And, the country is a lot less divided than we think, but also these regional boundaries are very artificial anymore, right? So we've got to create a space for people of all places, of all identities, of all backgrounds to come together to actually do the work of democracy. That's a lot, Nancy. Sorry.
No, no, no. And I think that's a really good question. In the So many times people don't even ask me where I'm located as I'm speaking to them. I mean, there is an assumption, I think, that whatever state we're speaking to, they assume that we're in that state. And there are times that I'll get asked and I'll say, I don't live there. And if you can give me more information about what it is that you're struggling with at the state level, I will get education in that. Adrian, I don't think you know, I've moved 15 times. I've lived in multiple states. I've lived on the West Coast, the East Coast, the South. I've lived in other countries. I'm currently living in the Midwest. So I'm not in Idaho. And I'm having conversations right now with people in 6 different states. And like I said, many times that doesn't come up. And I think that what's interesting is every state has very similar concerns, and then some states have their own unique concerns. And it is interesting to be educated in those unique concerns in that particular state. Um, and each state, there is a different sort of, I get a sense of an overall arching concern that some people in that state may have. Um, so it's been absolutely fascinating. And sometimes I forget where I'm texting, which state I'm in. And somebody will remind me. But it's been really great to go across the country and have conversations in all different places.
You, you
One,
know,
I'm sorry, Eric.
no,
What,
no,
what,
go ahead.
one thing, Nancy, if you can emphasize, because I think this is very unique to what we do, is that we're going to places that nobody goes, and we're talking to people that nobody talks to. So much effort is placed on only talking to people that we think are persuadable. And we are going to places that are, it's the most progressive people talking to the people who have, completely opposite view. And that really doesn't happen. But also a lot of rural work doesn't happen. A lot of people just don't think it's worth talking to people in these areas. So that is one thing that makes this really unique from anything else that's happening in the US.
Very, very interesting. Having conversations with people. I had one recently where somebody says, I don't talk to other people very often. I am very isolated. I've had somebody say to me, I've never ever spoken to somebody who I think might be a Democrat. I don't ever say. I don't tell people whether I'm registered Republican, Democrat, or independent. They don't know. They make assumptions, but many times people will say, I've never had a conversation with somebody who thought this differently than I've had. Um, and recently, when I ended a conversation, one man said, come back again and talk to me because I don't talk to many other people. So we are reaching folks that people don't talk to, that I think sometimes feel like they are forgotten. And so those conversations can be really powerful, and really important.
I'm curious if perhaps you have advice, maybe something along those lines, as we head towards the election, because obviously things are probably going to sort of ramp up. And yeah, just curious what you might say to people out there. I think maybe especially the ones that feel like, you know, they'll never talk to a Republican, and they'll never talk to a Democrat, things like that, that people that feel maybe especially isolated.
Oh, goodness. I think the most important thing is that we hear you. We hear you. I mean, it sounds very basic, but I think that many people don't feel heard. And many times, the way that people keep conversations with me is if I just say, I hear you, and I want to keep hearing you. And I want to have a conversation with you, even though it might be a difficult conversation. And it doesn't have to end in an argument. We can have a conversation that can be civil, even if we disagree. And many times when I'm texting, I'll say, have you ever talked to somebody who is not of the same party as your party? And they'll say, no, I haven't. And I think that is just important for people to just start the conversation without being defensive, without being angry, and just saying, let's talk about this. Um, I think so, again, people are hurting. They are worried. They're concerned. They're hearing lots of different things from lots of different places that are not true. And so to just open up a conversation and say, let's just talk about this. I don't know. Is there anything else, Adrienne, that you can think of?
No, I think, one of the things that's really unique about this program too, Eric, is that we have a 62-page narrative guide. And Nancy and I are actually working on another iteration of one. So it's the kind of conversation. So Nancy talked about the empathy, the compassion, the non judgment, but it's also, not to record, like just to share with you, maybe you'll have a question, but like if somebody says something as really out there as like it's all the black people that are the problem, one of our folks might say something like, wow, that's really interesting. Would you mind sharing with me when you first started developing your ideas around race? Where were you living? What influences did you have? What did life look like? Have there ever been experiences that have contradicted that for you? How did you grapple with that? And so it's really so much, and Nancy says the listening, but it's really so much not what we say, but what people are given the grace to say and unpack that allowed them to deepen and have more complex analysis around the things that they're experiencing and how they contextualize the world. And it really is like, how do we find our humanity past a political party?
Yeah. Um, well, yeah, I'm curious, is there anything else that we should touch on, in terms of the program itself? Anything else that we haven't touched on here yet?
I guess just to say, so, you know, maybe Nancy, this can be your plea to people like, if you're struggling, if you're having a hard time with the conflict and division, there's a place for you. There's a place for all of us. And A lot of people are door knocking, a lot of people are trying to turn out the vote, but democracy isn't something that happens in an election cycle. It happens all the time. And it's built, as you so beautifully articulate all the time, it's built on relationships first. Like we have to create the cultural and social conditions for the policies that we need. It doesn't go the other way around.
Uh, I would 100% agree. And I think, back 4 years ago when I decided that I needed to find something to do to make a difference, um, this program was it. And it still is it. As I mentioned, there's such support within the program, but more than that, it is the day-to-day texting that makes me feel like we are making a difference. If we do not do this hard work, we will not be able to move ahead past this election to save the country, the democracy. I mean, it really is about all of us coming together. If we do not work together, if we are divided, things are not going, this past this election, things are just not going to get better. And every time I keep thinking it will be better if we just do this, if this just happens. And I've worked, and I will, since I was 18, I have voted in every election and I will vote in every election that I can. I have worked on many elections and I will continue to do that. But making a difference by bridging the divide, by talking to people that think differently is very powerful and it's very meaningful work. And it makes, we were in a Zoom meeting yesterday with other folks in this program. It makes us understand the work is hard and it is going to continue, and we cannot stop doing this. We have to keep talking to each other.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and
Well,
only other thing I'd say is that the link for people who want to do it is unitedvisionproject.org. But
perfect. Well, yeah. Anything else we should want to touch on? Anything else?
No, do you have any other questions?
I don't think so. I think we really have covered the the benefits, the reasons why this program exists, and what it's doing. So I think that's what I wanted to hear. So it's great.
thank you, Eric. And Nancy, you're
Good.
amazing. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Adrian. Thank you,
Um,
guys.
Eric, what time or when are you thinking of putting this out?
Um, I think this week, I'm gonna be working on it
Okay,
with some other
sure.
stories, but yeah, I'm hoping this week, possibly on Thursday. Um, my schedule is just,
Of course.
shuffling things
No, no,
around, but
no pressure.
um, but yeah, so I'm hoping to get it out this week.
Great. Well, I appreciate you both. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Nancy, you're
Yeah,
Thank
amazing.
you,
thank you.
guys. Thank
Thank you
you.
both. I
Take
appreciate
care.
it.
Yep. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Have a
Yep.
good one.
Bye-bye. Yep. Bye.